Hey guys. Welcome to Recap Pro. In this video, I am gonna talk about the 2018 drama, Sanju. As usual, there will be spoilers ahead, so take them with a grain of salt and let's get started. The movie opens with a man narrating a story. The story about Sanjay Dutt. He pays this man to write the story, but the story is so bad that Sanju starts beating him up. Meanwhile, the news reporter says that Sanju's bail is cancelled due to the act of terrorism and he is going to be imprisoned for 5 years. The public responds by saying that 5 years of jail time is not enough for a gruesome terrorist like Sanju. Listening to this, Sanju worries. That night, Sanju writes a suicide note to his wife. He says that it becomes easier for his children to tell that their father is dead when other people call them terrorist kids. He stands on the roof of his house preparing to jump when Manyata, his wife, comes and convinces him not to jump. She tells him that suicide will only solve Sanju's problems but not their families. She also says that people believe whatever the news channels portray. So he must find a worthy writer to write his version of the story. Then, Winnie Diaz, a famous international writer, enters the scene. Sanju meets up with her. Without any hesitation, she says that she will not write stories for terrorists. But Sanju defends himself that the press and the public do not know his version of the story. They do not know what exactly happened and what kind of a person he is. He says that the media is spoiling his image without even considering listening to his side of the story. As there are only 30 days left before he is supposed to surrender, he requests Winnie to write the actual story so that he can prove himself. Winnie gives him time till evening. She says that she will give him an hour to try to convince her to write the story. Then, Winnie meets a man on the road who shows him a newspaper article. That man asks Winnie not to write the story. He shows her a scar on his face and tells her that Sanju did that to him. He also says that the story only involves drugs, alcohol, and guns. Winnie is furious and goes to Sanju's house. She questions him about the accusations that she just heard. He replies by saying that the reporters are always in front of his house looking for news and drama. Then she shows him the card of the man who spoke with her. Sanju says that the man was his friend, Zubin. The story goes back to the year 1980. Sanju is on the set of his first film. As it was his first film, he was an amateur and he did not perform well in the scene. His father, Sunil Dutt, gives him a few tips. When he returns to the scene, Zubin gives Sanjay a cigarette. Sanju smokes it and feels more confident and he gives one of his best scenes. But Sunil shouts at him for smoking. That evening Sanju goes out with Zubin. He introduces Sanju to cocaine. Sanju inhales it and feels like he is on top of the world. In the next scene, Sanju calls his girlfriend, Ruby. Sanju and Zubin go to Ruby's house post-midnight. They think that Sanju showed up to propose to Ruby. Ruby's father meets Sanju and they start having a conversation. As he was high, he starts talking nonsense and they think that it is regarding Ruby. Zubin and Sanju act crazy and they raid the alcohol stash at Ruby's house. Ruby's father gets irritated and sends them out of their house. When Sanju reaches home the next morning, Sunil requests him to focus on his work and finish shooting as his mother may not be alive to watch the next one. Sunil shows him the reports of his mother and tells him about her pancreas cancer. Sanju gets angry and questions why they hid this from him for such a long time. Sunit says that his mother was acting as if she was fine for 2 years but she was not. They will be leaving for America on the next day for treatment. Sanju's mother enters the scene and says that she is going to America the next day for a shooting. Sanju is worried and cries as he cannot digest the fact that his mother is sick. His parents leave for America the next day. Sanju starts spending more and more time with Zubin. Zubin introduces Sanju to a new drug. After taking the drug, Sanju feels like he is in a new world and feels very happy. Then Sanju leaves for America to meet his sick mother. He takes his drugs along with him. He becomes very irresponsible and keeps doing drugs and cigarettes rather than spending his time with his sick mother. Then enters Kamlesh. He enters the hospital room and comes back where Sanju finds him. He beats him up. Kamlesh says that he just came to drop off a gift as he is a huge fan. Sanju takes Kamlesh to a club. Sanju buys him a red color coat. Then he starts doing drugs and the security finds him and threatens to call the police. But Kamlesh shows the hospital receipts and explains Sanju's situation. They ask them to leave but they do not call the police. Sanju and Kamlesh become friends. Sanju thanks Kamlesh for saving him back at the club. He says that Kamlesh is his friend. But Kamlesh rejects him and says that he will not be friends with a drug addict and leaves. Then Sanju says that one should not leave a person high on drugs in the middle of the road. Kamlesh returns and makes him throw the rest of the drugs in the water. Soon after that Sanju's mother Nargis gets well. Sanju and Kamlesh become good friends and he meets Sanju's family. They prepare to leave America. Nargis says that she wants Sanju to get married to Ruby once his film shooting is done. He realizes what he did that day at Ruby's house. He goes there to apologize, but Ruby's father says that Ruby is going to get married to someone else and forcefully sends Sanju out of his house. He gets back and starts doing drugs again. He gets high and calls Kamlesh and asks him to do something as Ruby is going to get married and he loves her. Kamlesh comes to India and convinces Ruby to meet Sanju and get to marry him. He also says that Sanju brought her a penguin necklace to get married. She agrees and shows up, but Sanju does not. Kamlesh comes back to find Sanju high and completely out of his mind. He asks Sanju how he brought drugs as all his money is with Kamlesh. He says that he sold the necklace that he brought for Ruby. Ruby is standing there all this time listening to this conversation. She asks him where her necklace is and he puts a bathroom seat around her neck and tells her that this is her necklace. She is heartbroken and leaves the place. That night Kamlesh also gets high and meets Sunil. He gets high because he does not have the confidence to face Sunit without it. He requests Sunil to take care of Sanju. He asks Sunil to become Sanju's friend and to do something. The next day when Sanju wakes up, Sunil tells him the news that his mother's health is bad again and they need to leave for America. He also says that he wants to admit Sanju to a rehab. Then Sanju locks himself in the bathroom and refuses to go to rehab. Sunil asks Sanju to stay in the hospital with Nargis, thinking that he will not do drugs in front of her. Sanju stays clean for a few days, but one day he could not control himself and does drugs again. That day his mother calls him, puts her hand over his hair, tells him she loves her and dies. Sanju is heartbroken. Then his first film premieres. He starts missing his mom and remembers the last moments he spent with his mother. He gets anxious and leaves the theater. Sunil follows him outside. Sanju starts crying and tells Sunil that he did drugs on the day his mother died. He said that he doesn't know what is real and what isn't. He asks Sunil to help him. He goes to a rehab in America. His body was too habituated to drugs by then, and as he stops taking them, all of a sudden his body kept reacting in different ways. The doctors worry about him and say that it is a miracle he is still alive. But one day he escapes from prison, gets a lift, begs for money, and manages to get enough money to go to Kamlesh's house. There he picks up an alcohol bottle only to find out Sunil is standing behind him. He asks his father to have one drink with him and he promised to leave. But when they start, he drinks like a madman. Then Sunil plays a song sung by his mother and Sanju gets emotional and decides to go clean for real this time and returns to the rehab. He returns home after 2 years. When he returns home, Zubin waits for him outside his house and offers Sanju drugs again, but he refuses to, resulting in them having a fight leading to his scar. Win gets emotional listening to this and accepts to write the story. Later she gets a call from Zubin telling her that Kamlesh and Sanju were not on speaking terms. She gets curious and goes to meet Kamlesh as he refuses to speak up over the phone. Kamlesh continues the story. As the story continues, we see that Sunil is the MP. During that time Babri Masjid is destroyed, a lot of people are hurt. Sunil tries his best to help those people. But some falsely blame Sunil for being partial to a particular group of people and start threatening him. Sanju is in his own world. He gets better and focuses on becoming the best version of himself. One day he gets a phone call threatening his family for what Sunil did. He tells this to Sunil, but he asks Sanju to ignore those. It is followed by a series of bomb blasts in Mumbai. Kamlesh reads the newspaper to find out that Sanju is involved in it and possessed AK-57 rifle. He returns to India and reads Sanju's confession. It says that Sanju brought 3 rifles for protection because he feels threatened by those phone calls about hurting his family. But soon after that he sent away 2 rifles as he is scared. The people who sells rifles to Sanju are arrested, so he destroys the other rifle. But when he is returning to India, police lift him up from the airport. They put Sanju in a jail where there are no windows, bed or even a fan. The following day everyone starts blaming Sunil as terrorist dad. Sanjay stays in jail for 6 months only to find out that his bail is cancelled. After staying in jail for 462 days he comes out on a bail. After coming out, the news channels propagated that he is a terrorist and suspects him on having RDX at his house. Waiting this, Kamlesh goes to see Sunil where he hears a conversation between Sunil and Sanju. Sunil is asking Sanju to tell the court that he knows everything about the bomb blast. Kamlesh leaves and tells that he must returns to America as there is a ride and never speaks with Sanju. Then Winnie returns to Manyata and says that she will not write the story. Then Sanju surrenders himself and spends 6 years in jail. One day Winnie meets Manyata and accuses that Sanjay was lying when he was telling the story back in the day. Then, Manyata shows her a recording. In that recording, Sanju is speaking from the radio station in the jail. He talks about how the media portrays things in a different way by adding spice to the story just to make more money. The media is portraying Sanju as a terrorist when he isn't. He did not even have any good scripts. That is when they find Munabai script and both the father and son have a good bonding time stewing the film, and slowly people started forgetting all the false accusations. But one day at an event, Sanju isn't allowed to present his speech about his father due to his case. That night he is very frustrated and tears up the speech. Sunil dies that day and Sanju is heartbroken. Before the cremation, Sanju leaves the speech in Sunil's pocket. Then, Sanju is given 6 years of jail time for owning a rifle, not for being a terrorist, but the media portrays it otherwise. Win visits him in jail and questions him about the conversation they had when Kamlesh left. He asks her to bring Kamlesh to the radius of the jail so that he can listen to the radio and he will say the actual story. Winnie brings Kamlesh. Sanju starts the story by saying that the lawyer offered to help him if he accept the false accusations and accept that he knows about the bomb blasts. Sunil tells this offer to Sanju and Kamlesh heard it. But little did he know what the backstory is. He rejects the offer just after Kamlesh leaves the place. Both Winnie and Kamlesh end up in tears. After a while everyone knows the real story and Sanju finally gets out of jail. He finds Kamlesh in the red jacket and hugs him. Winnie also surprises him by writing a book about the true story. Then he goes back to his family and leads a happy life. That's all for today's video and thanks for watching it. If you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, let me know in the comments below which movie you want me to cover in the next video. Until next time, take care and stay tuned.